Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fan Friction. I'm your host, Jack Shipley. Welcome to the show. If this is your first time here, we're really glad to have you. If you're coming back, thanks for coming back. Let me tell you a little bit about what we do here. We are a movie debate show. We have some goofy questions about nerd culture. Our guests here today will debate them out. They'll get points. Someone will win. We'll all go home happy. Actually, we're already in our homes, but that's okay. So enjoy the show. Let me introduce our wonderful guests. First, they won the last couple fights, and that's what we're doing today. Couple fights. They're the hosts rather of Odd Shape Channel. Please welcome Tom and Kimber.
Hello.
Oh wait, you can't see you because, like always, I forget to turn off my camera. It's Tom and Kimber.
We exist.
There we go. Perfect. Welcome to the show, guys, and welcome back. Then next, they are the hosts of Geek to My Nerd, and they've also done a couple shows on our channel. So definitely check those out. Please welcome back Joe and Ashley Davis.
Hello.
We don't have like cheering and stuff like that in the background, so we kind of have to make our own noise. I should have told everybody that. Yeah, woo! All right, our final guests. You know April from AfterBuzz TV. You know JTE from Screen Junkies and JTE Movie Thinks. Please welcome April Dawn and JTE.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Oh, we're really glad to have you guys. Thanks for joining us today. Finally, to help me with keep the show going, to check the facts and talk to social, I of course brought Brian from the DVD Bunker and Flyover State of Film.
That's right. 2 places now. You can find me 2 places.
And here, because he's fighting for the belt, which will happen soon. He just won a really tough one about a month ago here for Kimber's belt.
I won a really tough fight against Kim.
Yeah, she gave it to you hard. I don't know about Youssef, who didn't score a point, but I don't want to put him down. Anyway, guys, so we're going to get right into the show. As you know, we start off with a speed round question. JT and April, because you are our guests, we're going to get right in and start with you. I'm going to read the categories here. They're Weekend in Paris, Odd Choices, Bad Company, That's Superman, and Sly Fox. Which category would you like guys to start with?
I'll let you choose.
We'll do Sly Fox.
All right. I kind of knew you were picking that one.
Yep.
I don't know why. Hey, you know what? By the way, we don't have a sick-ass package to start this show, but we do have a JTE. I'm wondering if you could just throw out like 10 movie titles real quick, and we'll pretend it's a package.
Sure. Rambo 2, Commando, Lionheart, Double Team, Tango and Cash, The Rock, The Predator, the new one, not the original. And let's go with Long Kiss Goodnight, and we'll end it with our Shane Black, Monster Squad.
Wonderful. Now we're ready to fight. We need you to basically come into every show and do that.
One of those movies.
Yes, and it just happened. Okay, let's get into it. So the question is Sly Fox. So it's going to work speed round rules. So when you shout out your answer, you're going to go in the order that I hear them, and then we'll fight it out 30 seconds and 15 seconds. So Sly Fox question is this. What's a Sylvester Stallone, what's a role, Sylvester Stallone could have done better?
Judge Dredd.
Terminator.
Oh, wait, does that have to be a Stallone movie or any role?
No, what's a role, any role?
Oh, any role. Oh,
that,
shit.
that Sylvester Stallone, could have done better. Would you like
Cable.
to say that again?
Cable.
Oh, you know what? I forgot because this is a couple show. Everything's crazy today, guys. So basically what's going to happen is because we have groups, one of you is going to fight this round. So you have to pick a team member to fight. I'm assuming JT, you're going to take on the Sylvester Stallone question. But Tom, I guess you're going to fight for this one. I see you centering yourself there.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Ashley and Joe, who's going to take this one?
Me.
All right, Joe's going to do it. So Joe,
I said Judge Dredd, but honestly, you know
what?
what?
Let you pick again because I know the question was confusing.
No, I'll stick with Dredd.
Okay. All right, Judge. So Dredd's Judge Dredd.
Yes.
Am I understanding that? Okay, got it. Perfect. And then Cable from JT. And what was Odd's answer?
I said Terminator.
Terminator. All right. So I heard actually Terminator was the first one I heard. And then Dredd and then Cable. So we'll do Tom, Joe, and JTE. All right. We're all set. It's always chaotic at the beginning of the show, but here we go. And Tom, your time will begin when you start speaking.
For anyone who knows me, my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie is actually Last Action Hero, in which you get to see Sylvester Stallone portraying the Terminator in a video store. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I thought it was really cool, and I've always thought about what if Sly could do this. And I mean, they both are hard to understand anyway. He's not taking anything away from Arnold's speaking roles. And I think that you know, seeing him in Rambo and stuff like that, he's got that look in his eyes that makes you scared.
Time. All right. Judge Dredd from Joe. Whenever you're ready.
So Sylvester Stallone put Dredd on the map with the common populace, not necessarily with comic fans. They already knew who he was, but everyone quotes that movie, whether they think it's a great movie or a hoax of a movie. But he's improved so much with his acting capability and like comedy and action roles, and he could have come back to reprise the role. And I think instead of taking this dark, serious tone, we could have this schlocky, like post-apocalyptic adventure for like a sequel to it. Maybe not bring back Rob Schneider because he detracts from it, but no, he doesn't really. He's fine.
All right. JT, Cable.
I'd have to say Stallone would be a better Cable because for me, Deadpool's all about excess and kind of poking fun at the genre. Stallone being an 80s icon, somebody that as soon as you hear Stallone's playing Cable, you're like, oh my God, the jokes Deadpool could run off with that are going to be astronomical. And the fact that Stallone could really actually be really funny, especially when he's trying to play a deadpan. He's not trying to go for the joke. He's just trying to be almost a cartoonish version of what he was in the 80s. I think the Deadpool formula would work perfectly for that. And Stallone, he has the chops to pull off a grizzly old man. I think Brolin was too young. And Brolin's always Thanos.
All right. Back to Tom for a 15-second rebuttal.
All right. I'm not gonna say Sly can't be Cable because we saw him in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and he did just look ridiculous in like a costume. Like it was very distracting. Pulled me out of the movie. Joe, at least pick the
time. It's so tough on the second round. Judge Dredd.
Tom, you said Last Action Hero was your favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger film. We wouldn't have that role without the seminal role of the Terminator because of the making fun aspect of it. And with Cable, Josh Brolin's a great straight man to Deadpool's like comedy thing, and
Stallone. They hate the 15 seconds. And JT.
Stallone for Terminator just doesn't really work. Terminator has to be a menace in standing and stature. I like Sly, but he's a short guy. And he does have a little bit of a lisp. It doesn't sound right coming from Robot. As far as Dredd, it would just confuse audiences. He did the role. It failed. Carl Urban was great in Dredd. And I think that he showed that somebody else can play that role.
Whew, all right. Brian, I'm going to ask you to give me a little hand here. Oh, boy. What'd you think of that one?
Oh, that was, that was really good. I like the idea. Like, I like what Joe was saying about, giving Stallone almost a chance to kind of like keep the tone but improve. And I like the idea of Stallone as Terminator, although personally I might have brought him in as in T2 and replaced Robert Patrick with Stallone and then really got your like Arnold versus Sly in there. That's not relevant to Tom's argument. That's just what I was thinking about when I heard it. But I think overall I'd probably have to give it to JT. I just think he had the more cohesive argument and he hit his counter was good too.
I think what really worked for me was JT's inclusion of Deadpool and how the two would relate to each other and how that including Sly in that role would really get to play off of each other. It was really tough for me, but I'm going to go with JT as well. So you get the first point. Congratulations. And for us, that means you get a point and to choose who goes first, second, and third in the main round. Who would you like to go first, second, and third?
For the main round, I will say we'll go third. I like to hear everyone else's arguments before I give
Okay. And who should go first and second?
Ashley first.
Okay.
And then we'll go second time.
Okay. All right, guys. Round number one. What is the best movie featuring geeks or nerds? I don't know if anybody has a channel that is similar in name to that particular question, but that's what we're asking today. I'm going to put a little extra time on the clock because there's more people today. All right, so the way this is going to work is one of our team members will have to argue the opening arguments, and then the other team member will have to close. I don't mind who it is, so you get to pick for yourselves. Ashley and Joe, you guys have been chosen to go first. Who's going to open your arguments today?
I'm going to do the opening arguments.
All right, and then Tom, who's opening for you guys?
Me again.
All right. And then JTE and April, who wants to open?
Me.
All right. Wonderful. The question is, what is the best movie featuring geeks or nerds? Let's start with Ashley.
All right, so when we heard this question, this was probably the first movie that came to our mind, even though there's so many wonderful choices for this question. But we wanted to go with Spider-Man Homecoming because we felt that as a movie that features dozens of characters who are either nerdy or geeky, like this was like the most inclusive and also the most positive one. Versus some of the other choices like from the 80s where it's like, oh yeah, that movie's hilarious. And then you get to the problematic moments that don't hold up. Even though this movie is new, I feel like this one will hold up over time. So of course, like our main nerd is Peter Parker himself and all of his little friends. They go to a magnet high school. So literally every character in the movie is either a nerd or geek. And it's just surrounded in nerdiness because of its comic book origins and also the fact that it's part of the MCU. So it's just layers of nerdiness and like other like teen movie nerdy references. It's just layers and layers of nerdiness, but also super positive. So I wanted to go with something that was inclusive.
Wonderful. Tom, tell us about your movie.
All right, we picked Fanboys, which is a personal favorite of both of ours, and it's about the group of they've grown up together all through their life. There's about 4 or 5 of them, and one of them, there's 4 of them, and then there's Kristen Bell. Then one of them has they find out he has cancer, and their whole life all they're talking about is breaking into Skywalker Ranch. And this is right before the prequels. So this is like a perfect time capsule of like Star Wars fandom pre-prequels and like the anticipation. And it's really, you really get to see what makes these nerds unique, yet what's the common thread between all of them? Why do they get together? Why do they debate movies? They're literally quizzed on their nerdiness in order to progress through the storyline. It's a lot of fun. A lot of cameos, and I think it's the perfect pick.
Wonderful. And April, which one did you guys pick?
We went with The Social Network, and I think we can all agree in today's day and age, there's no one who is more awkward, dorky, wildly intelligent, and overall nerdy than Mark Zuckerberg. This movie is literally about a group of geeks who create a site to talk to girls online. What is more nerdy than that? The film also manages to make coding and the process of making a website look cool, which can only happen in today's society.
All right, fight it out. Oh, everybody's
first of
allowed
all,
to fight, so go for it.
I just want to say, Fanboys, it's an okay movie.
Yeah.
It's like if The Big Bang Theory were coming out with a theatrical film, it would probably be what Fanboys is. It hits the jokes right. They're very like, they're in-your-face jokes. There's nothing too deep to them. It's like, here's a reference, here's another reference. Remember the Millennium Falcon? I get it's got a good heart to it. I admit, like, it has a good place where it's coming from, but it does feel like kind of the easy road. And it's like what you would think a geek is as far as like a CBS sitcom, hence Big Bang Theory.
I mean, I have to disagree with that. I'm just gonna throw the Big Bang.
I hope you
Theory
would.
out
That's
the
the
way, because this movie was campaigned to come out by nerds. Most nerds hate Big Bang Theory. My dad watches Big Bang Theory. You know what I mean? Like, so
I watch Big Bang Theory.
People were behind this movie.
You're somebody's dad, Jack.
At SDCC, like
George Lucas and Kevin Smith saw this movie and even decided to help.
Kevin Smith demanded a cameo.
Kevin Smith wanted a cameo, so he got in. George Lucas gave them the original sound effects from Star Wars. I think that the main difference between this and something like Big Bang Theory is when I watch a movie like this, it feels like I'm hanging out with my friends. Like, there's nothing authentic about the Big Bang Theory. This is how the people that I spend time with in my actual life speak to each other. We do say movie references. We do pick on, Trekkies if we only like Star Wars. You get all kinds of different nerds in this movie. In your movie, you kind of had just like these cold sort of like corporate type nerds who end up like stabbing each other in the back to get what they want. And ours is completely about friendship. And in Joe and Ashley's, you really just have a bunch of like magnet school kid nerds. This, we have several different types of nerds represented throughout the whole movie.
Point out.
Sorry, go ahead.
Couple of little things. First off, both of your movies contribute heavily to the kind of geeky, toxic culture we live in now, where basically it's really okay to tear other human beings down just because they don't like the things you like. I mean, you mentioned that Facebook was brought up so guys can talk to girls. Well, it was made so they could basically compare and rate girls, and that was the original impetus of it.
Hot or not, or something like that.
And and yeah, ours is just a bunch of magnet school kid nerds, but it also has, you know, geeks and nerds from other regions, such as Martin Starr, who was on a little show called what?
Freaks and Geeks.
Thank you. And it features all sorts of kids being nerdy and geeky in their own way. What did they put together? A freaking Death Star Lego set in the movie. And
we know they own Star Wars.
What?
We know Disney owns Star Wars.
And Seth Rogen was on Freaks and Geeks and has 3 roles in our movie.
Yeah, 3 roles that are horrible caricatures. Horrible caricatures.
Well, Roach is great. Here comes the dark side.
Well, Spider-Man Homecoming. Oh, can I go?
Yeah.
Well, Spider-Man Homecoming is a good superhero movie. I don't think it's a good nerd movie. Part of being a geek or nerd is being a bit of a social outcast and awkward. That doesn't work when Peter goes to a school full of nerds. And the bully of the film is on the debate team. In what world does that ever happen? And while Peter is smart, I don't agree that he's a nerd.
True.
He's
The
the
bully is
hottest girl in school and has a 6-pack. That's not much of a nerd.
But he's already a social outcast at a magnet school. So yeah, everyone's nerdy and geeky and does their nerdy and geeky stuff there.
Did you see like the cheerleaders look over at Ned and Peter and make fun of them for talking about Star Wars? Flash is literally like bullying them all the time. There are different subtypes in the movie. There's a huge variety of very realistic. You put all those kinds of kids together, those different groups. I mean, you're gonna really see that it's a more realistic representation of what it is to be like a nerd and geek in that Gen Z kind of situation. Further, there's Michelle MJ, character played by Zendaya. She's even pointing out that Ned and Peter are losers because they're just sitting there staring at one of the characters. So they're already the social pariahs of their social pariah group. This entire school would be beaten up in almost any other public school in New York. But
that your movie has nerds in it. It does. But I liked what April was saying, where like Peter Parker, for me, growing up, was the only nerd. And I think him being in a school with a bunch of, and when the bully's also a nerd and everybody's a nerd, it kind of takes away from that specialness that that I identified with when I was a kid, because when you're an outcast, you're the only one.
Well, he is an outcast, even in his school. Like he's only got one.
MJ's more of an outcast than he is.
And
MJ doesn't care about that though. She's like in her own little bubble, reading her woke books and
I'm not gonna lie,
calling out people. Like she doesn't care about that stuff.
He is the geekiest, nerdiest one among his peers because he's making web fluid in chemistry class and hiding it under the school.
Yeah, but he's also bankrolled by Tony Stark. If he was that smart, he could develop his own suit.
If he was that smart and bankrolled by Tony Stark, as you so put it, he wouldn't need to steal chemicals from his school to make his web fluid and hide it under his locker.
So here's what I want to hear more about the social network too, because we haven't really heard a lot.
You guys are really seem to be going in on the geek aspect more than the nerd aspect, which I understand because we're all movie geeks. But for me, the social network shows you, like you said earlier, it shows kind of what nerds are today. Today, liking Star Wars or wearing a Star Wars shirt is not nerdy. That is like what everyone does now. Like fanboys, Star Wars, if that movie came out today, they wouldn't be seen as geeks, really. They would just be everybody else who's in high school. To me, what Social Network does is shows you nerds, which are people that are interested in something that not everyone else is interested in. Like they find coding awesome. They find doing like these competitions to see who can code a website faster than the other person. And the fact that Mark Wahlberg is kind of like the poster child for the next wave of what nerds could do. And
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh,
what did I say? Wahlberg? Oh my God! Imagine Mark Wahlberg.
All nerds look like Mark Wahlberg now.
Like for me, Mark Zuckerberg is the poster child of what nerds could do today, and look where it took him. He became a billionaire. And also, yes, well, how does that movie end? Him refreshing a page on Facebook. that is a nerd for this generation, and it's not a great generation sometimes for nerds. Yeah, sometimes they are the worst on the internet, and Facebook to me shows you how you can take that power of being a nerd, and it can turn you to something that you probably don't want to be. And to me, it's the most relevant
argument about saying that everybody wears a Star Wars shirt nowadays, because this movie doesn't take place in nowadays. It takes place before the prequels come out, and it was a different world back then. These guys have been planning this their entire life. They're lifelong friends. In fact, one of them is a dude who feels like he's too old for this and growing up. I think that one of the main things that makes my movie feel a little more authentic is that yours is dealing with these people who are like fighting and grabbing for millions and billions of dollars. I don't know any people like that. There's
Silicon Valley is full of them.
Even before they're famous, like the girl has the conversation with him at the beginning of the movie, and she says that girls don't like him, and it's not because he's a nerd, it's because he's an asshole. Like, these are not the type of people that I would want someone to watch the community. Like, oh, here's the representation of the people in my community, and they're assholes.
I agree with you, but unfortunately, that is when they're showing these level of nerds, that's what it's like. And I wish they weren't all like that. And I don't think it represents every nerd in the daily society, but I think it shows how the nerd culture today could actually affect the world. Also, for me, Fanboys, I think it's such a heartwarming story. But then you watch it, and it's like a spoof. You got William Shatner showing up. It gets to the point where I feel like they went for more grounded, realistic take. What's that?
Are you saying that it's too nerdy for you, sir?
Because
no,
I think
the tone is, I think there's a lot of nerdy stuff in it, but it doesn't get to the heart of like what it means to be a nerd. It's just like, let's keep throwing references at you, and things happen that are almost like, it feels like it belongs in the Jerry Zucker movie.
What it means to be a nerd is that it's your dying wish to go to the Skywalker Ranch and watch a movie before it comes out. What it means to be a nerd is your dad just offered you your entire company, and you left that because your friend is dying, and you need to get across the country to do this thing with him that you've been talking about your whole life before he passes away. And that's the heart of this movie that yours doesn't have.
I want to see that movie. I just feel like Fanboys wasn't that movie. Yes, it said those things. It said those things, but it's surrounded by such comedy, outrageous comedy, and a lot of times kind of dumb humor that the message to me like
very well either. Like when you look at like all of the different elements of the movie, like there's all of the gatekeeping with like, oh look, they're quizzing each other, but it's I find that very problematic in fandom, and then kind of like the misogyny against like Kristen Bell's character. It's like, oh, you're not a real girl because like you like all these nerdy things, so you're now like taken out of the pool of available.
That's real representation.
The whole like Harry Knowles part where it's like, oh, that's not a good look anymore. Where they're like, oh yeah, the Ain't It Cool News guy, we'll get you the exclusive. And just
at the time, it was the only place to go.
Time I was watching the movie, like I can't like. Just every moment, like, and the way they set up the plot with the sickness of their friend, it felt like it was going to be one of those twists where it's like he wasn't sick all along. They just tricked him to get them to get the other guy out of his shell, because they kind of like literally shelved that part of the plot until it was convenient. Like you never see him at any moment until like the crucial time where like he passes out or whatever. But like showing his illness, where other movies that have that same kind of structure where a character is sick and it's their last hurrah, they'll show them throughout the movie, you know, succumbing to their illness, where it just felt like we forgot he was sick. Let's have him pass out and we'll go to the hospital, and like, oh no, Carrie Fisher's there and she doesn't know anything about Star Wars. Haha, that's hilarious. I just felt it was very problematic.
So Joe, I want to go over to you here and start off on final thoughts for you guys. What are your final thoughts on which is the best of the Geek movies?
So when we had because this was a very challenging question to broach, because that is part of the issue of this, is we are all very passionate about our choices, and rightfully so. It's not like any of these movies are actually bad. We're not saying that. The issue is when you choose best, you have to choose best for you for the purpose of like what it represents. And for us, Homecoming is kind of that. You could even remove some of the superhero elements of it, and it's a story about a bunch of geeky, nerdy kids that are trying to, find out who they are, trying to, they're an academic decathlon for Christ's sake. And they're trying to make it through their own little corner of the school world. And it does so without actively tearing down or making fun of these tropes or stereotypes. and there's no gatekeeping elements involved in it, and it's something that I think representatively we need as far as like geeky and nerdy movies go.
Kimber, you get to close this out for your movie.
My movie is not a perfect movie, but if I had to choose one of these that I thought best represented what the actual nerd and geek community is like, when I watched this movie, I felt like this is the one that me and my friends and everyone that I know could actually fit into. Of course, it does take place a few years back, so you're dealing with a few issues that were of that time, but it's realistic. I'd rather any day have this be the way that we're represented in the community than these evil cutthroat people and, you know, it being just kind of a footnote in Homecoming. Like, this is the only movie of the bunch that's fully about being a nerd and how it feels to be a nerd and how much it really means to these people. Like, at the end of the day, the only thing that means anything to these people is being a nerd.
Awesome. And then JT, you're closing us out on your end.
For me, Spider-Man Homecoming, first and foremost, it is a superhero movie, and it is about a person becoming a hero and figuring out what it needs to be a hero. To me, the geek aspect is a cool set dressing. Putting him in that school with all the other geeks is fun, and I do think Peter Parker, you know, he is geeky, but that is not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is to show a person to become Superman without all those gadgets. And it's more of a personal journey. The geek thing is just a side project for me. So Spider-Man Homecoming is a superhero film first and foremost about the hero's journey. Fanboys, I think the heart is in the right place, but at the same time, it's one of those movies that didn't even get a theatrical release. If it did, it was limited. And to me, you could see the budget restraints. They did have some issues with the movie. It was a passion project, and I think its heart was in the right place, but at the same time, I think the comedy is a little bit over the top. It tries to aim too wide at times where it's just trying to hit the most general audiences, and it's very focused on one property as far as Star Wars. Yeah, you could say, oh, they feel about that way about Star Trek or anything else, but to me, nerd is more than just being in love with one property. For me, Facebook movie, The Social Network, to me is about, yes, not the best side of nerds, but it's directed by David Fincher. It has an all-star cast. It was nominated for several Academy Awards. One of the best soundtracks, also by Trent Reznor, but that's a whole other story. But for me, it shows you what in the real world and today and how geeks and nerds change the way that we live every day. We are on Google Hangout. We are on Facebook. All these things that happened because of this one nerd and what it meant to him to be a nerd and how it changed the way he went to creating Facebook. It really, to me, it's the one that leaves the biggest social footprint. And it shows you, yes, it doesn't show you the good side, but for me, it is the most impactful of all these other movies. And if we're just asking what is the best movie to represent nerd, this one affects us in our daily life. Those other films are cute. They're fun, and they're funny at times, but this one is by far the most important and shows you something more real than these other movies, in my opinion.
All right, time. Well done, everybody. Good fight.
Ugh.
Let's go over to Brian. Brian, we're going to do facts, and then we'll pick a winner, and then we'll talk social. What do you got for me?
You know, there wasn't too much fact-wise here. A lot of opinion. You know, The Social Network, there's been some debate from Mark Zuckerberg about the validity of some of the things in that movie, but I don't even think that really came up too much, so I don't think that's necessary. As far as how I felt about the arguments, really good. I'm glad JT got in at the very end. He leaned into like, hey, this is a David Fincher movie that was nominated for Best Picture, so we really need to he got that dig in for the best movie featuring geeks and nerds, which I think is always an important thing to kind of keep in there. I liked the stuff from Joe and Ashley about, you know, a more positive representation, but I also thought Tom hit back pretty good with Fanboys is an accurate representation. Like, unfortunately, nerddom and fandom and geeks and everything isn't all positivity and sweetness. And that's similar to Social Network too. It's really hard. These are some really good arguments.
Yeah,
I'm kind of narrowing it down between JT and April and Joe and Ashley, but I could easily be swayed to Tom and Kimber also. So try to be real helpful here.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks. So anyone could have won this round. That really worked out for me.
Coin toss.
So yeah, this was really, really well fought. For me, I seesawed the whole fight between, oh, it's definitely this person. No, well, okay, maybe it's these guys. So for me, oh man, this is really going to be tough. I think the thing that actually hurt Team Thinks the most was waiting till the end to kind of get in all of the really great things about your nerd movie, because the whole time one of the notes I had written was that I'm like not hearing enough about The Social Network, and like you threw in Fincher at the end, which was actually good, and its awards, but I didn't feel like I got enough of the combination of how nerd culture was expressed in such an award-winning way. So for me, it fell between Ashley and Joe and Tom and Kimber. And you guys really had it out. I think that Spider-Man took a lot of hits for how its nerd culture is represented. But I think, for Tom and Kimber, they also took hits on, the sort of dated feel of their movie and the sort of ludicrousness of it in many ways. For me, though, the one thing that really hit home was when Kimber, during her argument, said that when you quit, you get offered a job to take over your company, but you quit to help your kid who has cancer friend go across the country to see a Star Wars movie. Like, that is nerd to me. And I think she had two examples of that. It really pounded it home. There's tons of cameos. I think the movie that they presented the picture, that's the movie that exudes the most nerd. I'm going to give the point to Tom and Kimber. Good job, guys. Woo! And then we clap for each other because we don't have.
Yeah, no, we're cheering.
So what did social say, Brian?
Oh, lots of great picks on social media. First of all, there was a little poll. David Bowman threw up a poll for
Thanks,
us.
David.
Social Network got the votes on that one. He also suggested Office Space was his pick. TJ Dex mentioned Real Genius, the Val Kilmer classic.
Pick, by the way. Good job, Dex.
Sam Anderson, like Hidden Figures, which I had kind of like let fall out of my mind, but it's definitely a great pick. And our old buddy Sam Catlin, he loved him some Superbad, some McLovin. Hard to disagree there. My pick probably would have been the documentary Trekkies. Big fan of that one.
Well, that's a great movie.
That's derogatory. It should be Trekkers. That's what they're called.
Well, they address that controversy in the movie, so.
So go out and see the movie.
I was
quoting
Tom Kimber's movie. Thank you.
No,
all right, guys.
Movies lacks action hero.
Let's do round two. We're going to go to Team Geek to My Nerd now to pick the next category. Let me reread them for you. We got Weekend in Paris, Odd Choices, Bad Company, and That's Superman. Who's going to be fighting it? It's Ashley this time, correct?
The fight, so.
Okay. Ashley, Kimber, and April. Okay.
It's ladies' night.
Woohoo! Let's go with Bad Company.
Bad Company is the pick. All right, let me just write down some names so I can be ready to go. And the question for Bad Company is, what Disney villain should have their own TV show? Bad because they're villains. Disney, Bad Company. See, it's a wordplay.
We got it.
Scar.
David Attenborough.
What Disney villain should have their own TV show?
I am totally blanking. Oh my
You
god.
have to randomly pick a Disney villain.
Yeah.
Any Disney villain from a movie that has Disney stuff.
Disney.
I can pick one for you guys.
Disney movies.
Disney makes all the movies, so
Villains in a Disney movie.
I can't help
See,
you.
they literally own like the entirety of movies right now. So you could Ursula. All right. Ursula from Ash.
Name any Disney villains.
anything not from the Renaissance that anyone wants to pick.
I'm just saying that Disney controls so much in the movie world. Hey, if it makes you feel any better.
Specifically Disney, or
I
can
just
it be
said
like
Disney
Star
villain.
Wars or Marvel?
I just said Disney villain. That's all I'm saying.
No one
I
wants to
said
fight it.
Disney villain. You can fight it any way you want to. Just saying, what Disney villain should have their own TV
So
show?
he's saying it's open.
I'm saying the question is, what Disney villain should have their own TV
Can I say
show?
Snoke?
Sure.
Great.
And I cannot wait to hear the argument for that. Okay, so we're going to start with Kimber and Scar. Let me get my little timer doohicker ready. Okay, Kimber, Scar, whenever you're ready, you have 30 seconds.
Sure, Scar is just a charismatic character in general. I think there are a lot of people who would be interested in listening to Jeremy Irons' voice all day long, no matter what he's talking about. It could be an animal show because he's an animal. He's also interested in politics. So that could be interesting, hearing Scar's take on the current political situation at hand. I just think that he's the type of person you want, somebody who's just interesting to listen to, and people listen to Scar. That's how he wielded his power.
Well done. Ashley, Ursula from Little Mermaid.
All right, I would love to see a TV show centered around Ursula because, first of all, to have a character whose like body size is like on the larger scale, like I think that could be awesome. Even though she is a villain, I would love to see her interacting in the undersea community and seeing like what other kind of like villainous characters she's interacting with. There would be a lot of awesome songs because as we know, like her amazing. Song in The Little Mermaid, and so there could be like a song that would be great.
All right, and April with Snoke.
I think Snoke is such an interesting character, and The Last Jedi just started to scratch the surface. We didn't get to hear his backstory, his storyline, his rise to power. I think that would be a great show to do, and I think we need more Star Wars shows. I think that would be very interesting, and to be told from the villain side is very cool for Star Wars. I think we need more villain storylines in general when it comes to shows and movies. And I think that, like I said, he just started to get a taste of him, but we need more from him, and I want to know what he's all about.
Awesome. Kimber, 15 seconds.
I think we have plenty of Star Wars right now. I think my character also sings Ashley, and above all, my character's a people person. He's interesting to listen to. People love Scar. He's charismatic. He's the guy.
You can have 10 more. Yeah, I know. It's a long time. 15 seconds. All right, there we go. And Ashley.
When we get into villains' backstories on Star Wars, it always causes more problems than solves. We don't need more Star Wars. Scar's played out. We don't really want him. Ursula could be a great show with all of her devious interactions with people. And she's also.
And April, whenever you're ready.
I don't really want to watch a show about a lion. I don't think that's really interesting. Is it going to be animated? Is it live action? I don't know how they would even begin to have a whole film or show on that. And like I said, I just think that we need more from him because they just started talking about him.
All right. Brian, weigh in with your opinion, sir.
I mean, I think they hit April pretty hard with like we have plenty of Star Wars. It's hard to argue against that. But April did have me thinking about a Scar TV show that was more like documentary style, like Meerkat Manor, where like a guy just films lions and like talks over them. I was kind of like that had me like leaning back into the Scar pick, but nothing is going to overtake the idea of Ursula. I want to see like RuPaul's Drag Race hosted by Ursula. Like, I know that wasn't the pitch, but that's like, I can't stop thinking about that. So I'm gonna lean into that one.
All right. So unfortunately, yeah, I think the biggest hit was that, we have a ton of Star Wars. So for me, it is between Ursula and Scar. I like points made by both you guys on this. By the way, Snoke, if Snoke's not a musical, like an cha-cha musical, I'm not watching it. Anyway, Ursula and Scar, I really like, Jeremy Irons, the importance. I assumed it was animated like right away because when you said Jeremy Irons' voice, like that's what kind of spoke to me there. I like the idea that it's politics. But I think for me, like what drew me to Ursula as the answer is because it had the most to do with the character itself. I'm getting an echo, so I apologize. I'm coming through somebody's feed. There we go.
Sure.
It's someone. It's okay. It's the internet. This wouldn't be our show if it didn't have this problem. There we go. Anyway, so I'm leaning into Ursula because I like the body size. The idea that there's all these people that she's interacted with and all the contracts, which is something that she mentioned at the end. And because you can't hear me anyway, and it's really echoing, let's just say it's Ashley and Joe. Congratulations. And then let me figure out why that's happening. I don't know. Let's just mute everybody for a second. It's JTE and April. You're the culprits, but that's okay. I'll put you back on in just a second. I have it muted just so everybody can hear me for a moment. So Joe and Ashley gets the point.
Yay!
Well done. So guys, you will get to choose the order for round 2. What would you like it to be?
All right, we're gonna go last. And I want to hear from JTE in April 1st and Tom and Kimber 2nd.
All right, so you guys are going to go last. Surprise, surprise. Let's pull this through. Hey, JT and April, we're getting a loop for you guys. Do you mind doing me a quick favor and just dropping and then coming back into the chat?
Sure.
Sometimes that makes a loop. I don't know why. And I'll set up the round. So we'll give them a few moments to come back, and then we'll get started. So we're going, you said JTE and April 1st?
Yes.
And then Tom and Kimber 2nd. You guys will go 3rd. Ashley and Joe. Wonderful. Here they come back.
Back.
Let's see if that fixed it. It did. Thank you guys for doing that. Sorry. It's the internet. Woohoo! Thank you, YouTube. You suck. All right. So the order is JTE and April. You guys are going first. Question number 2. What is the best action movie duo or team of all time? That's the question I gave them. I did also ask that we don't pick a superhero movie, which will be relevant shortly. So JTE and April, who's going to open for this round?
Me.
All right. Hit us up whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, what better action duo is there than the one that started the buddy cop genre? And we're going with Lethal Weapon. Glover and Gibson are in their prime in the Citizen Kane of buddy action films. Shout out to Scott Mantz. Lethal Weapon created the formula of yin and yang in the genre. Murtaugh is a family man who does it by the books, while Riggs is such a wild card that flies off the hinges. And what makes them such a successful duo is not only their opposites, but the action they bring to the film is tied to their character traits. Overall, these characters laid the roadmap to make films like Tombstone, Hot Fuzz, and all the other team films possible.
Wonderful. Tom and Kimber, what'd you pick?
Yeah, I'd argue that my guys are the original buddy cops because they're in the 1800s. I've got Wyatt Earp and his Immortals. I think that this is a classic action movie. It's got top-notch, like some of the best one-liners of all time. I'm not going to narrate them to you all day, but I could. I might say some of them during the fight. Spoiler warning. But basically, you have this team, which is primarily 4 guys, super all-star cast. This movie was quietly, basically, ghost directed by Kurt Russell himself. This movie is just perfection the entire way through. It's got a couple major gunfights. For a really long movie, it keeps you engaged with its pacing and continuous action. And I just don't know what else you could want in an action movie more than Tombstone gives you.
Great. And Joe and Ashley, who's opening for you?
We chose Hot Fuzz because Hot Fuzz is not only homages everything their movies are doing, does it better, and actually has like the better elements of what a buddy comedy, cop, action, etc. does, because they build off of each other and they improve each other and they become closer. I would say better than these ones do.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, well, the point of Hot Fuzz is trying to pay homage to films like Lethal Weapon, Point Break, and other genre films. So you can't give a point to the film that's about paying respects to the films that did it better.
That's happened on this show before, so you can definitely do that. But don't knock us out because we homage and also do everything just as well as your movie does, but also like the relationship between the characters in our movie. Like Joe said earlier, they do build off of each other, where I feel like with Riggs and Murtaugh, it's like you're just like crazy. It was like, well, we cast Mel Gibson, so let's make him the crazy one. And then all of these other things, I felt like they didn't like really like work together as well from the start of the relationship as they Angel and Butterman do at the beginning of their film. And it's like the more antagonistic part of Lethal Weapon, like that really kind of bothered me, where I love in Hot Fuzz where Butterman, like he really looks up to Angel, and Angel's like, I'll have to deal with you because I work here. But then like we can see like how they grow together, where Butterman becomes a better officer and then Angel becomes more relaxed,
more of a person.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Hot Fuzz, first and foremost, is a comedy. It is Edgar Wright's Guardian trilogy. Yes, it has some dramatic elements. All 3 of his does. But for me, if you're talking about best action duo, I like my action to have some consequences. People die in Hot Fuzz. It's a joke. It's like, oh, somebody else died. It almost feels like Scream. There's a guy in a hood going around stabbing people and killing people. And I'm like, okay, the kills are made for laughs. The action duo, the thing about Lethal Weapon is you actually care about the action because you care about the two main characters so much that when their families are put into danger, and the way that I agree with you, they don't start off by working together very well, which is great. Any movie needs conflict. The best movies have some sort of conflict. And for them to actually become a team and being such different cops and actually learn to respect each other makes just the movie so much more emotional, engaging. And again, we're talking about Richard Donner in the 80s when he was like just killing it. Lethal Weapon is set the standard for action movies today. It's up there with Die Hard as some of the best action films of all time.
I think another thing that really hurts Ashley and Joe's movies is that if you're thinking about who they're attacking in their fight scenes and their action sequences, it's a bunch of old people and like little villagers in like rural.
Those people are ruthless and like messed up, like with their whole like creepy cult.
The priest
like,
has the spring-loaded pistols in his
I don't
sleeves.
feel bad for any of those casualties. They literally are like have like the Donald Trump attitude of before it was
Make
cool.
Sanford great again.
Yeah, like it's so
I'm not
creepy.
saying
It's
that
like,
I
we're gonna
don't-
murder all these people. Like I don't feel any sympathy for.
I'm not saying that I don't feel bad for the casualties or something like that. I'm just saying it's not very badass to like be fighting old people. Like my dudes are fighting classic, like they're literally called the cowboys, like badass cowboys.
Yeah,
Not to mention, my dude was a legend before the movie started.
Montages, though, it's like here's this montage. We barely really get to see them work together, and I can't even remember half the characters' names in the Immortals except for Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp, and then like the other three expendable dudes that like you get named.
The other two are Wyatt Earp's
Talk
brothers,
about Michael Rooker like
and
that.
their names are Virgil and Morgan. It's said
Those-
repeatedly throughout the movie.
I don't remember them being the Immortals. The Immortals are the two Jacks that I interchange. Michael Rooker, who dies, and Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp.
They're all on a team together. We're not arguing like the logistics
Well,
of the name of the team.
Rooker-
Let's talk about what happens in the movie.
Rooker
I wanted to say
joins the
something
team.
about Lethal
Go ahead.
Weapon first before I got cut up. I think a lot of Lethal Weapon's problem is that it is an 80s movie and it does fall victim to like people calling people faggots and saying homophobic things and slurs, racial slurs. Your guys actually say more racial
I mean, it's
slurs
Mel Gibson.
and stuff than the bad guys in my movie, and you guys are the good guys. Just
I actually don't remember those.
It's Lethal
slurs.
Weapon 1. It sucks. He does it twice.
Oh, I don't remember that.
And it comes up again in 3. And also, what kind of superhero team needs Joe Pesci for 3 movies?
Well, first of all, we're talking about the first Lethal Weapon.
Oh,
not
no, I
two-
was told that
Are we allowed to talk about the whole series?
Yeah, well, I had told them that you could talk the whole series because it's the duo, and the duo has
Oh,
4
great.
movies.
Well,
so.
We're also the only people that got a
Sequel.
franchise.
Yeah.
So
we're literally the only one that got a franchise.
Good for
of
us.
action movies.
Where's that franchise now?
Where's that franchise now? They're 60. What do you want them to do?
Oh, no, it's been revitalized and is now a TV comedy show.
Yes,
it
exactly.
was so good that they
Show.
wanted to continue
They're
the
so
show.
desperate. They're like, we can just make this again.
And if
You mentioned
we're saying
Diana,
there's
so-
something wrong, I disagree because comedy action is a very valid form of action. It's a great form of action. Considering how ridiculous some of this stuff gets, comedy action, I think, is a better way to approach this. And some of the better parts of Lethal Weapon are its levity. But its levity is singed in this whole, like, suicidal mentality that's
It's
like...
so problematic the way that they treat like his obvious depression over the loss of his wife, and then like everybody's just like it's a real commentary on how crappy the 80s were as far as like mental health goes. And then towards like the climax in the movie when they are they go to the house to confront the family, and then like Busey's character, like they just have like this fight on the lawn. It's like, just arrest him. Like, why do we need this fight for like no reason? This is
You're
so
literally
dumb.
saying everything I love about this movie. Everything you're saying is why I love this movie. There's a point where Gary Busey is in handcuffs, and Mel Gibson goes, "Do you want a shot at the title?" And he goes, "Don't mind if I do." A fire hydrant is spewing water, and these two guys in pure 80s action machismo go at it in like an MMA fight before there was the UFC. For me, Mel Gibson, the scene where he is getting tortured with Murtaugh, you actually care about what's happening to these characters. The daughter's been kidnapped, and that scene where they break out of the club and have a gunfight, and Mel Gibson is literally going on foot trying to chase a car, is such an iconic kind of action scene that's been replicated. Bad Boys. Will Smith has a whole scene where he's basically doing the remake of the Mel Gibson scene where he's chasing the bad guys on foot after a car. And also, I think I really want to double down on again Richard Donner making another one of his classic action films, showing like how good of a director he was. This guy did The Omen, Superman the movie, and then he did something totally different with this film and brought a hard. You think about like 40 Hours and all these other films, they benefit off Lethal Weapon because he showed that you could have comedy and have the consequence. Hot Fuzz, the comedy, again, I understand it's funny and it still has good action, but as me, a huge action aficionado, if I'm going for a hardcore action movie or something that I'm really going to be like, it's about the filmmaking a lot of ways for me. And I know Hot Fuzz kind of makes fun of it with the editing and stuff, but to shoot an action scene and actually have it shot to the point where it's not choppy like Taken 3, where it's just jump cuts, where Richard Donner shows the restraint of holding the camera back, giving you two characters that you really care about. And I care only about Hot Fuzz characters because it's Edgar Wright and those guys. When these two when Danny Glover and Mel Gibson came out, they were not superstars.
I want to say make this your final thoughts too, JT, because I think this is you anyway.
Mel Gibson was not a superstar when Lethal Weapon came out. Danny Glover was not a superstar. These were two character actors that really kind of did something different than most action movies were doing. This wasn't Dirty Harry, who was just unflappable and was just like, how many bullets I got left. Giving Mel Gibson that thing with his wife, the fact he was going through like suicidal thoughts, it added so much drama to the character and the way he found a new family with Murtaugh's family. I mean, I just think from almost every aspect of an action duo, there's two guys. And the last thing I want to say, I'll end this with Tombstone because I don't really get a chance to talk about it too much. For me, if you're like, what is one of the most badass cowboy movies characters? Kurt Russell as freaking Wyatt Earp is amazing. And Doc Holliday is a good supporting character. But I feel like the team never really gets in on action very much. They're all retired. They're just trying to have a sweet private life, trying to, become these newfound family people. And they're forced to it by the very end. Sam Elliott and Bill Paxton barely fire a weapon. At the end of the movie, they take off on a carriage and run away. And it just leaves basically Kurt Russell to take on all the cowboys with Michael Rooker, because Doc Holliday is basically on his deathbed the whole movie. And he pops up for that one final fight with Michael Biehn, and it's super cool. But as far as like an action duo team, this is a Kurt Russell action movie with some great supporting characters. I don't quite call it an action duo.
So Tom and Kimber, go ahead.
All right, so real quick, to talk about Doc Holliday, he is not on his deathbed the entire time. He is seen as a loyal friend to Wyatt Earp. He supports him in the shootout, the OK Corral. He is always there when he needs him. Yes, he takes naps in between, but wouldn't you? The big difference between Doc and yours, or Mel Gibson's character, is that like literally like Val Kilmer is dying, and yet he's trying to live in every way possible. And your character is like the exact opposite, and it's such a downer.
He finds new life by the end.
It's his. Let him talk.
I can't take this.
Joe and Ashley's movie, while done well, it is a rehashing of action movies, and Lethal Weapon is just problematic. And like, why do they never they never shoot to incapacitate? Like, there's a part in like Lethal Weapon 3 where they're drawing up on a guy with an assault rifle, and they're like, should we just run him down? Yeah, we'll run him down before. Like, that's not how cops should behave. You guys both have bad cops. Our lawmen are good. Our lawmen only do it because they have to, and they're forced to because their families are attacked. And that's why they run off at the end, to protect their wives. So you left out a lot. It's also a true story. While yours is like, it's crazy. The last act of Hot Fuzz is just shooting, and yet they hardly get hit at all. And the true can be said about Wyatt Earp in my movie at OK Corral and at the Iron Springs scene. No! Except that's how it's actually reported. There was not a scratch on Wyatt Earp. These are true. These is based on a true story of real life events that inspired Westerns, that inspired action movies, that inspired Hot Fuzz.
Ashley and Joe.
All right, I like how you're, Tom, trying to talk about how the, Westerns and, inform this, but just like when you talk about a question about the best duo or team up, it just really felt like it was the Wyatt Earp show the most of the time. Occasionally Doc Holliday would do something, and then the other team members were just barely there. You barely remember their names. That most of the time when we see their action, it's in these montages where it feels like there's just no stakes. Like, even though I know it's based on history and you could read what happened, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like afraid for them or anything. It just felt like, okay, we're just going through this. We're going through this. The movie was kind of oddly paced as well for a Western. Like I was expecting something, you know, especially like one of the great Westerns of all time, like something gritty and whatnot. But it felt very tame for the genre. You know, maybe that's a time period thing, but I just didn't really feel that it was like a true team. It was just, Wyatt Earp and his little friends and Doc Holliday with tuberculosis, who shouldn't have been fighting because, you know, maybe he would have lived longer if he had actually listened to his doctor. But, you know, again, the team just didn't feel very cohesive. It was just like, Wyatt Earp. And then as far as like Lethal Weapon goes, it is super problematic, you know, especially as the franchise goes on. It's like, why are we still doing this? They're literally now too old for this word I can't say because I'm a teacher and I don't want to be a bad example of the children. It just doesn't make any sense. And like, whereas Hot Fuzz, yes, it's informed by these other genres. Yes, it pays homage to these other genres. It does it in a loving way. It does it with great commentary. You really get to feel for these characters. It doesn't matter if they're played by Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. Like when I saw that movie, I had barely seen Shaun of the Dead. I didn't know who these people really were. I just thought it looked like a fun action movie, and I love action movies. I love buddy cop movies. So like I really did care for these characters because we had seen how Nicholas Angel, he's so like stiff and he doesn't want, like, everything is by the book, and like the accuracy of like the paperwork with the police officers, and just how he's like, you know, to the letter of the law all the time. And then with Danny Butterman, who's like just barely a cop because like his dad's a cop, so I guess I'll be one. And like their whole town with their lackadaisical attitude about everything that's going on because it's all about making it the best little community. I really did feel for these characters. It was great to see their journey from where they started to how they improved each other, where like now Danny is a competent cop and Nicholas Angel is more laid back, and how they improved the town through their actions. And I really think that that third act is a pretty strong third act with the different homages to the different action films, you know, because they had made fun of all of that before, and now they're like getting to reenact those things. So it was a fun. They're a great pair. I would say probably a very iconic pair that will live on, because this is probably Edgar Wright's best movie, you know, especially out of the Cornetto trilogy, but probably out of everything that he's done. He's a good filmmaker, and this is the top of his work.
Well done, guys. I just like to reiterate that I really hate Hot Fuzz as a movie. But it will not play any. That's okay. I also don't like The Big Lebowski. So let's go to our.
We're going,
Brian. Let's go to Brian for some facts, and then I also have some things to say about Lethal Weapon, Brian, before you pick.
Okay.
Before you go into your picks, but go ahead.
Sure. You know, as far as facts go, obviously lots of opinions being thrown around. JT did mention that. Mel was just a character actor. He is already done with the Mad Max trilogy by the time Lethal Weapon comes out, so he's pretty big star, you know, by that time. People kept talking about who the Immortals were, what's the lineup and everything. You know, I don't know where to differentiate the line. Is it like the Avengers? Is it a rotating team? By the way, the other guys, you know, Michael Rooker was Sherman McMasters, and the other two guys were Texas Turkey Creek Jack Johnson and Texas Jack Vermillion. So that thing with the names was just driving me crazy. I love Hot Fuzz. It's actually my favorite Edgar Wright movie, like by a lot. But I do think it's hard to ignore the fact that it like leans so heavily on tropes that were built by movies like Lethal Weapon. So it's hard to kind of like not. My opinion, but I also can't be objective about this because of Tombstone. So Jack, go ahead and just say your thing about Lethal Weapon, and then pick, because I can't be objective.
So no offense to Hot Fuzz, it just wasn't my cup of tea. And I have picked winners before from things I didn't like, Dracula Dead and loving it. So that won't be a problem here. But Lethal Weapon, just so everybody knows, the Lethal Weapon series, if you haven't seen it, you should. It's really, really, really good. It's a great reinterpretation as a TV show. It's just a shame that the lead actors couldn't get along because the guy who plays Riggs is no longer on it. But it's worth watching it on Netflix. It's everything you loved about Lethal Weapon. So let's talk about these picks. You guys really fought movie very hard, except that the question is a duo team of all time. And if there was any negative to all three arguments, it was that you focused very heavily on your movies, but didn't give me a ton to work with on the relationship between your main characters and why they are such a good duo. So surprisingly, the team and the movie I would have picked the most, which is Lethal Weapon, I feel like I heard a ton about Donner and a ton about the franchise and a ton about the pedigree and all that great action sequences, but I didn't hear enough about the relationship between Murtaugh and Riggs, which are the duo. So for me, it's definitely between Wyatt Earp and Hot Fuzz. So I'm looking very much for Wyatt Earp and Hot Fuzz here. So with Wyatt Earp, we have
a mind boggle.
You have a point. You're not going to leave with 0. No. So when I'm looking at Wyatt Earp, we definitely have the strong team. We do have the legend of Wyatt Earp, which I think really plays well into the characters. Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp are two very well-known duos. So even if you don't necessarily know the name of the entire team, those two characters do move through history, and they, of course, have inspired a lot of other films. Joe and Ashley, I thought that they rebutted very well that comedy action is still legitimate action, and that just because, your fights are more comical, it doesn't detract from it. And I think that Ashley, especially in her closing arguments, really described the two characters and why they're important and why you care for them in the end. So when I'm trying to figure out between the two of you, I'm looking heavily at how you argued for your teams as well as the movies, but more for the teams than anything. Oh boy, this is tough. It's really close, and I hate picking movies I don't like. But I think the argument was just slightly better made for the two characters in Hot Fuzz. So by a very slim margin, Joe and Ashley get the point. Well done, guys. Very nicely done. Social. How did it look on the social side?
Looking good. There's some picks out there. Over on the YouTube, the Game Fixers mentioned 21 Jump Street. Jenko and Schmidt from the new 21 Jump Street.
Nice.
I saw some good stuff online. Obviously, Bad Boys. Jonathan Peck threw in Bad Boys. That's speaking of Hot Fuzz. That's a classic. I like David Bowman. Brought up Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. And Janine, our pal Janine the Machine, she had a great pick. John McClane and Zeus from Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Nice.
Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, which is a really solid one. I like that.
Speaking of Janine, by the way, Janine, thank you for submitting a question. Yours is going to be round 3. So
I'm just going to throw this out there. We were sweating this round because all the other movies were fantastic movies, and it's great acting.
I really hate Hot Fuzz. I really do. I do not like that movie. I watched it. It wasn't interesting to me. I just was so annoyed the whole movie.
You're a bad person.
That's okay. As I tell all my students when they disagree about something, we don't all have to like the same things. It's okay.
That's true. That is very true. So by the way, I also want to give a shout out to Jonathan Peck. He submitted a lot of questions this round. He does have one of the questions in the speed round, but of course we don't know if they're going to get picked or not, but I wanted to throw your name out there. Thank you for contributing. Janine, like I said, you're going to be round 3, so I'm looking forward to that. So guys, we have Joe and Ashley, Team Geek to My Nerd, with 2 points. Tom and Kimber, Odd Shape Panel, with 1, and JTE and April with 1. So guys, it's anybody's game. That's the whole point of this. So let's go into round 3. Who didn't get to pick yet? It was Tom and Kimber.
Yeah.
All right. So so round 3. So a couple special things. So both of you have to fight in this round. You get to pick who goes first, and then you got to pick who goes second. So keep that in mind. Tom and Kimber, here are the choices remaining. Weekend in Paris, Odd Choices, or That's Superman.
I guess we're going to have to do Odd Choices.
I knew you'd take Odd Choices, but It's Superman was going to be a great question, but no one takes it.
I wanted to do it.
That's all right. Okay, no. So Odd Choices.
You defer to the champ, all right? When she says she makes a pick, you pick it.
So it doesn't matter who goes first or second, and it doesn't matter who shouts out the answer. So if you guys want to take a few moments, you don't have to rush. You can talk, confer with your teammate to pick one that you both can fight in this particular question. It is, what is the worst movie to take a date to see?
Teeth.
Oh my god.
Blue Valentine.
Hold on.
No problem. So Teeth was Kimber and Tom.
Yeah.
Okay. And then April, you shouted out Blue Valentine.
Mm-hmm.
A History of Violence.
History of Islands.
Violence.
Yeah.
Oh, violent. Okay, I heard History of Islands.
Violins.
And I'm like, I'm in. You've won. I don't want to see the History of Islands. That does not sound like fun. The History of Violence. That sounds like a more interesting film. I was like, I'm going to need fact-checking help. What is the History of Islands? Okay.
It was a great movie that starred Robert De Niro and
Building islands. It's all about geology.
This makes much more sense now. Okay, so we're going to have Team Odd Shape Panel first, then Team Think second, and then Team Geek to My Nerd third. Let me just set up my timer. Who is going first for each of you? So Kimber, April, and Ashley. Okay, so the girls and the guys. Easy enough. And let's set up the timer. Sorry, I have to do everything. Okay, and we are ready to go. Odd Shape Panel, whenever you are ready, you may begin.
Sure. My movie is not the type of movie you want to watch on a date. It's about a girl who's inflicted with an issue called vagina dentata, which means she has teeth inside of her vagina. So there are several scenes where she bites people's penises off with her vagina. There's also a scene where a dog eats a man's penis that was before cut off by the vagina in question. It's got a creepy, molesty brother. It's just chock full of stuff that is going to make your penis crawl inside of your body and just die there.
All right, April, it's your turn. Blue Valentine, good luck.
All right, so picture this. It's date night. You are going to go see a Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams film. Ryan Gosling, the guy from The Notebook, right? That's probably a great movie. You get into it. It's all fighting. They hate each other. They're throwing things. They're calling each other names. They don't end up together, and you leave the date like, love is dead. This is not a thing. We aren't going to make it. Sorry, guys.
You have 10 more seconds.
Yeah, and I just think the big thing is that before this, Ryan Gosling was known for romance films. You think it's an easy bet? It's going to be cute and nice.
Time.
Cool story.
Ashley, whenever you're ready.
all right, so you think a movie that was directed by the same director of Eastern Promises would be good, but no, it's terrible. You have Viggo Mortensen as this like family man, but he used to be an assassin, and he literally rapes his wife on the staircase in their home, and then it turns into this like creepy like scene, and it's just, you know, if I'm gonna go on a date, I don't want to see people being raped on the staircase, and plus the action was terrible, but that whole thing was just the worst. It just leaves you so mad when the movie ends just like on this weird note because the director's weird.
All right, so we're switching over to the guys. Odd Shape channel, you guys are first. Tom.
Neither of these are close to genital mutilation. Geek to My Nerd, yeah, your movie has rape, but so does ours, and it's incestuous. Ew. And then I'd rather love be dead than my penis.
Okay. JT.
Teeth is such a ridiculous premise that no guy you go down that with a date or a girl are really going to feel like that could actually happen. It's absurd. If that guy thinks he's actually going to get his piece bit off, you should break up with him anyway. And as far as History of Violence, I mean, it's a comic book movie about a mafia hitman guy who gets found out. This movie actually lets you lose love.
Okay, Joe, you're closing it out.
So what was left out in the description is not only does he attempt to rape his wife on the stairs, but then when he realizes what he's doing and stops, she starts assaulting him. And it's this weird, confusing thing that, like, I don't even know what's happening, and it ends like The Sopranos, and nothing about this movie is good. Your movies are...
Time. Oh, boy. Hey, Brian, is it the Vagina Penis movie?
Oh. You know, it's funny. I know a little about the Vagina Penis movie. DVD Bunker, episode 53. You can check us out talking about teeth. If you want to know more about this particular film, you can get our insight on that. You know, it's hard for me to just go into arguments and not like what I want to do is fight. I'm like, no, I have some points to make. Like, I have some things I want to say about these movies. But stepping back from it, I think I didn't hear a lot of attacks against Blue Valentine, which is not to say that it didn't deserve them, but maybe just people kind of like, I don't know if it's better that it's just forgettable. They don't see it as a threat. the stuff going on in History of Violence, that's a very complicated relationship between him and his wife. I think it's hard to nail that down as an uncomfortable, and the quality of the movie, that's an opinion piece there. So, but with Teeth, man, they hit you hard with genital mutilation. That's hard to watch no matter what the context. So I think I'm going to lean into Teeth.
All right.
Be careful.
Yeah, the word play that we're enjoying.
I'm not going to lean with my penis.
Are we not doing phrasing?
So next time, let's not ask this question. Lesson learned. So, yeah, this is tough. I think that of all the films, I think you guys, you're really right. Like, there wasn't a lot of Blue Valentine hitting, and I think that could also be that it hasn't been seen versus the other ones. But I really liked JTE's take on Teeth, how he sort of spun it as like it's ridiculous. Like, you see this movie and no one's taking it seriously, and I thought that was a good diffusion of Teeth. I think that Joe and Ashley's movie is like hard to watch, so I'm really like I am floating back and forth. I think that because no one really took a really strong shot at Blue Valentine, and the way JTE rebutted, and I think April set a good tone, it's really tough. It's easy to go with all of these, but I think I'm going to give it to JTE and April. So well done. That was a crazy fight.
I just have to say, I did watch Teeth on a first date before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't with Tom, was it? Because that would invalidate the arguments.
It was not.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think there are plenty of dudes out there who, even though they know Teeth isn't quote unquote real, it's super uncomfortable.
For sure. I think, for me, it was really how confidently that rebuttal came through, and I think you did the best at actually hitting everyone as opposed to just sticking with your film. So
that's like watching snakes on a plane and be like, I'm afraid to fly. Like, what are you talking about?
right.
Or if you're afraid of both flying and snakes, that's like the worst movie ever to watch.
So the score is 2-1-2. That means anyone can win. The final question is a 2-point question. It is the mystery round time. Team thinks, who's going first, second, and third?
We'll go third. First Tom, second Ashley.
Okay. All right. And wonderful. The question is from Janine the Machine. Watch her on the Schmodown. Kicks a major ass because she's awesome. But she's also a friend. She does all our logos, and we really appreciate it. Thank you, Janine, for submitting this question. The question is, what live-action superhero has the best significant other? You're going to kind of be arguing for both of these. It's not just the superhero, so your whole team group here has to work. So, Team Odd Shape Panel, you get to go first whenever you're ready. Tell us about your team.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and pick Vanessa from the Deadpool movies. I think that she is a really great match for a character that is hard to have a great match for. I think that they actually have a relationship that seems realistic, and if it doesn't seem realistic to you, then you don't have friends like I have, because I know a lot of people who this is what made the movie for them, particularly on the first one, because their relationship is very close to reality for a lot of people, but exciting enough to make everybody be interested for a movie. So Vanessa's a great girlfriend for Deadpool, and that's why we picked her.
Great. Team Geek to My Nerd.
We chose Laura Barton, the wife of Clint Barton, Hawkeye from the Avengers film, specifically Age of Ultron. That's the only one she's represented in, but that is our choice. She is his wife, and we don't get much about her, but we understand fairly quickly in the very few scenes that she's in and what little we get from Hawkeye that he probably wouldn't be able to be the part of the team that he was and be able to support the people he does if it wasn't for her and the support she gives him.
Great. And Team thinks.
Well, the question was asking for best superhero significant other in TV or film, and we're giving you both with Peggy Carter. When Cap met Peggy, she was in a position of power over him. When we first meet her, she punches the guy in the face. She helped form S.H.I.E.L.D. And while the love of her life was frozen, she could have easily felt defeated and heartbroken, but instead she carried on her mission for truth and justice in his honor. And while they may not have the best superhero relationship, as it does ultimately end in tragedy, I do think she's the best significant other, which is what we're fighting for.
Great. Go for it, guys. Fight it out.
Is the tragedy Peggy dying of old age or Cap banging her niece?
Oh, no, that just shows you how much he loved her. He stuck it in the bloodline, man.
And the original relationship was unconsummated. You know, Vanessa's and Deadpool's wasn't.
She was a prostitute. If you remember that.
Hey, let's not say shame sex workers here.
No, of course not.
Hello to our friends in Amsterdam.
Vanessa and Deadpool's relationship that is kind of problematic, and I don't mean like, you know, issues or whatever. It's the fact that their relationship must have been rocky-ish, even as solid as it seemed in the montage of Calendar Girl. That when Deadpool, when Wade became, you know, an avocado, had a child with a topographical map of Utah, he felt so scared to come back to her to let her know that he was alive because of his looks. And if his looks are what he feels, if his looks are all he feels that they shared, then that's not exactly an inspiring relationship.
Except for that's his own insecurity, because when he does come back to her, she really doesn't give a crap, and she moves really quickly forward for it. So this is a question about the significant other being great, and she's great. She just accepts immediately.
It's how Beauty should have ended instead of just...
The relationship they have is part of this equation, and the relationship projects on him that she cares more about his appearance. That's what he takes. It may be his insecurities, but they were together, again, about a year, because Calendar Girl.
Even if he is insecure, she's still wearing his jacket, even thinking he's dead. She's not. She's at a strip club. She's waitressing. She is like taking herself out of that. So she is also in a state of mourning and loss. She thinks that her end.
I mean, he's dealing with unbelievable circumstances. It's hard to say how anybody would cope with that.
It's crazy.
But they never forget about each other. Everything that they do is to get back to each other. And she's just a great motivator and totally has his back the whole time.
So much so that people were mad in Deadpool 2 when she died so quickly. Like,
spoiler.
And not
well, if we're talking about Deadpool 2.
Well, I can explain. But Deadpool also came out on Valentine's Day weekend. We went for Valentine's Day. What if, like...
So did we.
It's a rom-com that does not deserve to be as good as it is, but it is because of these two characters and how the lengths that one is willing to go to better himself for the person he loves.
So let's hear more about Hawkeye and Carter.
Who?
Okay, well, I think my biggest issue with your two choices is that they're both people that need to be saved. Hawkeye has to go home and be with the family and save her. And same with Vanessa. She dies when he's trying to protect her. Peggy does not need saving. She can keep her own. She fights. And then even after Cap is gone, she still fights on just as well as she does. She basically becomes her own version of Captain America, fighting crime and like for justice. Where I think your people are more helpless.
I think that we have a lot more relationship to work with here. I think that Joe and Ashley have a couple that's really not memorable. And unfortunately, like Hawkeye's kind of a hero that's not memorable to a lot of people. I know you love him, Joe, but that's not the case with a lot of people. And they picked a relationship that's barely a relationship. I think ours is the only one that's like a relationship that is fully developed and really integral to the plot. It's taking two people who are kind of bad people and they're getting better as a couple. You know, they're starting from a lower point and elevating because of their relationship.
It's funny
so you bring up that like Hawkeye's relationship isn't developed and that he's unmemorable. And that's the thing. He is unmemorable to most. He is the joke Avenger to the average person. She makes a point of pointing it out. She's like, those people need you though, because she understands and sees that him as weirdly the only father of the bunch is also like this weird shepherdly father figure to the Avengers. He is a support member that basically provides the heart of the team. And they proved it in that film, that her little pep talk of him, because he even talks about like, I don't know if I can do this. And she's like, well, I support your avenging if that's what you want to do. And if it wasn't for her support, he couldn't be who he is, even dealing with the ridicule that gets thrown at him from whoever would be throwing it at him, because he is probably next to maybe like Black Widow and him are the only underpowered or unpowered Avengers, and she has more skills and capabilities than he does. So yeah, he's just the dude with the bow.
And just because it's only in one movie and it's one part of it doesn't mean that there's not a significant portion there. Just because something's small doesn't mean it's not mighty.
Yeah.
I mean that part in Age of Ultron is like it's okay. It's okay. Everyone's like, I could probably fast forward to get to the part where they go after Ultron.
I would say you fast forward the whole Thor stuff versus the farm stuff. I think some of the farm stuff is some of the best heartfelt parts of the movie.
It's surprising because he has a family, but at the same time, Linda Cardellini's character doesn't really do much except for be kind of like a Hallmark mom. She's like, come into the house. Oh, we all love each other. There's no dynamic there. You don't know their history. All you know is Hawkeye has a wife. Interesting. I know nothing about their relationship. There's no history there. It's just, hey, Hawkeye has a wife, so now we care about him a little bit more. And
Tom,
as far as
let me real quick, Tom, what did you say there too? I didn't hear it.
Oh, and he the only other thing we know is that he never finishes projects around the house.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, sorry, JT, go ahead.
Also, for me, like Vanessa, I do think they have a decent relationship. I mean, like it's the beginning of that movie is a love story, but I just hate how the end it ends up with the usual superhero thing where she's in like a case glass and the bad guy has his sword. He's like, haha, I have your girl. Come save her. And to me, that just feels like it's just very cliche. And the fact they killed her in the very beginning of part 2, I was actually like, I liked her in the first movie. Why did they have to go kill her and not make her just part of the story? And then part 2, Vanessa really, while she is kind of the background every time it goes to afterlife thing, she just, the relationship isn't there. It's about the loss. I think Peggy Carter captures both of those. No relationship in, I think, of all the Marvel films is as good, not even Pepper and Tony, as what was going on with Captain America when he was flying that plane and she's like, save me a dance. And when he wakes up in the future and the first thing he says is, I had a date. Like, that is one of the more iconic Marvel quotes of all the relationships. And the fact that, she, like April said, she went into S.H.I.E.L.D. and that relationship always stuck with her. And the fact that he went and visits her while she has dementia and still that love, you could just see the love they have for each other, I think, more than most of these. I think the one with Deadpool, it's like it starts as a lust and they definitely love each other, but it's just like an instant love, like puppy love, and it's very comedic in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I don't think that's true though, because they do take time to have like a montage to show you that a lot of time is passing.
Oh, yeah, girl.
Developing. I think that your relationship is completely a loss. Like, it's two like middle schoolers who are like sweet on each other and hold hands. Maybe it's not like a real relationship.
No, it's barely a relationship because he's finding that he never got his first date.
I know, but that to me is like.
And the argument is not about who has the best relationship. It is the best superhero significant other. While their relationship does lack, she is the best significant other.
They never even danced.
And then he's banging the niece. Like, how does that not undercut?
First of all, we never know that he banged the niece. They shared one kiss. We have not seen her since.
Oh, he's banging.
Oh, we saw those eyebrows.
Yeah, listen, but for all we know, Cap never got a continued relationship with her. He literally went on the run from that point forward.
Well, then
he shared
Cap's
her moment
never
with
getting
her.
laid because at this point,
Could be. I mean, I feel bad for him. I just feel like that relationship really, even to the point where it comes to the point in Civil War where he will not give in to Tony. He gets inspired by her.
She's the driving force.
By her niece.
You mean like Vanessa in Deadpool 2?
Deadpool 2, he thinks she's dead and it's a joke.
It's not a joke. I think that it's powerful because it shows you how important she was, and they did that because it was completely unexpected and it pissed people off. I thought it was really interesting for them to make that move because she was such a huge part of the first movie. You say, yeah, she's in the glass box and he's coming to save her.
What did she do in the first movie besides get kidnapped? What did she do in the first movie besides falling in love with him and then getting kidnapped and being a damsel in distress? What did she do?
She's a significant other in a superhero movie. What else is she supposed to do?
Let's talk about
big ass like Peggy Carter.
But they're not even in a relationship. They're not even a couple.
Yeah,
it's a barely significant other. Barely significant other.
Significant others in the various TV series and movies across Marvel and DC. Like Peggy and Cap were not even like on my list, and then most of the other ones are pretty terrible. So I felt like it was a very small list of people that you could choose that were actually good. And yeah, Peggy Carter and Cap are not even in the same stratosphere as that because they don't consider them to be a couple. He was just going to go on a date. It never happened.
Steve Rogers is the love of life of Peggy Carter. Titanic, when she threw that damn diamond in the ocean, she went right back to Leo because that was the love of her life. They only knew each other for a couple days.
At least
if
they
you
boned.
find the person you love for the rest of your life, all it takes is a short amount of time. That's all I'm saying. That's why they're most significant.
Let's get the final thoughts. We're going to start with team. Go ahead, Tub.
Okay, so you guys want to say that Vanessa and Deadpool's relationship is all puppy love, and that's how it appears for the majority of it until one critical scene when you find out that Wade has cancer. The way she stands up for him in that doctor's office, trying to advocate for every single thing that they can get in order to make him better, it just shows how much she loves him and continues to love him. Joe and Ashley, I forgot your. Oh yeah, it's. Does she have a name?
Laura.
Laura. Okay.
Said it 3 times.
I don't know. It's her fault that Hawkeye's not in Infinity War. Let's just do that. And then there's nothing else I could say about her. And then I feel like this Peggy Carter thing is just it's her just loving the idea of a man for the rest of her life. She never really got to know him. She saw she hung out with him like a total of what, like a year maybe combined.
A year? That's
short.
You'll have a chance. You'll have a chance to address this, JT. So Tom, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
I just wanted to ask Ashley and Joe how long they were together.
All right, and during their rebuttals, geek to my nerd, Ashley.
Us? You mean us or Hawkeye?
You guys. Physically.
Like us.
Yes.
Well, we've known each other since we were 8.
Yeah.
So 1 year is
sorry,
nothing.
Tom, I misunderstood.
What?
So 1 year is nothing.
Yeah, I know. And of all these relationships, technically, our character's relationship is the most solid because
I think I get the final thoughts. Though. Yeah. I get to talk now. I like how Tom said that it was all Laura's fault that Hawkeye was not in Infinity War. It's not really cool to blame the woman for any actions of the man. As you know, we do not control men in the relationship. That's like everybody saying that it was Hillary's fault for all of the Bill Clinton stuff. And I don't think that's really cool. He obviously made that choice for himself. Or there was other reasons why, because, acting and whatnot. I think that, again, as I said earlier, Peggy Carter and Captain America, they're not in the stratosphere of couples I would have chosen for this question. And I think there was a lot of other couples that had different problems. And so that's why we wanted to go with Laura and Clint, even though, it is a small moments of the movie. Just because something small does not mean it's not significant. You do get to see a lot of how their relationship works with how she kind of helps build him up when he's having doubts. And especially with, his place on the team and how she's the one that really inspires him to keep going, but also reminding him of the bigger picture and the bigger stakes of what they have at home, because they're literally about to be outnumbered because she is pregnant with their third child. They have 2 older children. And then as far as Vanessa and Wade go, again, I don't think it's a bad relationship. I do appreciate its realism, especially if you are a person who maybe has suffered trauma in your past. I feel like they do fit well together. I just think that, trying to think of the right way to say it, like especially in Deadpool 2 when she gets fridged, that was a huge problem. And the fact that he goes to such lengths to try to harm himself. I found that very problematic in that movie and in their relationship, where it should never be something where a relationship ends where somebody feels like they can't carry on anymore, so that they must harm themselves. That kind of sat really bad with me with their relationship. Whereas I feel like out of all 3 of these, Laura and Clint have the healthiest relationship. Again, even though it's short, we see that he's supportive of her. She's supportive of him. Their kids seem to be very well adjusted, even though Dad's going off and doing his avenging. It just felt like I wanted to see more of that. I would watch a TV show of Clint on the farm, hanging out with his family, not finishing projects. and you know, maybe occasionally some other Avenger like drops by to say hi at the safe house. I want that.
JTE.
I mean, I kind of agree with Ashley. I would have liked seen anything more than besides them just dropping in on a family. It felt like a tool by the filmmaker just to incorporate some heart and make us like Hawkeye a little more. It never really explored the relationship. It just presented a family life to us. And I didn't know what the character's name when you first said it. I was like, oh, Hawkeye's wife from Age of Ultron. Yeah, that was that little part in that movie where they go off and all have a little talk by the farm. So for me, like, the question is, who is the best significant other from a superhero? And to me, I want to really take the superhero idea and go with it. For me, I like Vanessa. I think they have a good relationship. Obviously, they're really both kind of messed up in some ways, and they work good for each other. And I think it's great that she stands by him. But at the end of the day, she's just there to get kidnapped at the end of the movie and be the catalyst for the villain to be like, I got your girl, come save her. And then they kill her off in the beginning of part 2. And I was upset. I was like, I was really looking forward to seeing her in this movie, not just in some weird lighting, you know, afterlife scene. And so for me, Vanessa, while like I do agree relationship is good, like as far as a superhero significant other, I'm not going to debate the love that Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter had for each other. That is, you can't, you said it's not in your stratosphere. It is the stratosphere in Marvel. The only person you can debate more is maybe Bucky. That's a whole other show. I will say the fact that they fell in love with each other for so long, and 1 year is enough, especially when you're in wartime. Wartime, you see the best and worst of people, and Peggy saw the best in Steve Rogers before he was even Captain America. And once he became that, then the friction really started getting going. And the fact that the way that ends, of him going down into the sea, and the fact that that it was one of the only moments in a Marvel movie, maybe besides Spider-Man and Infinity War, where I was almost tearing up in theater because I was fully invested in the love that they had with each other. And the fact that her spirit and his spirit affected each other going forward throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. The ramifications of their relationship goes all the way into Civil War, where Captain America stand because he's inspired by the words of Peggy Carter. So for me, when you say the best significant other of a superhero, Peggy Carter is by far, hands down, the answer.
Awesome. Great final fight, everybody.
Very much. That was tough.
So JT, if you don't mind doing it one more time, just drop right back in.
All right, 1 second.
Yeah, all right, thank you very much. Sorry. Again, it's connection issues in the internet. It happens, of course, right at the end of the show. So we'll give it a few moments. How about some other relationships from social, Brian?
There were some good ones. I wanted to shout out David Bowman and Jonathan Peck. Both had some unconventional picks. Bowman mentioned Alfred. I think that's a great significant other. He does so much for Batman. Like, there'd be no Batman without Alfred. And then Jonathan Peck threw out Charles and Magneto, Professor X and Magneto, which I think is more like that, like toxic duality. So I don't think that one necessarily counts as a significant other. I saw love for both the Spider-Man, both the Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane from the two Spider-Mans that have finished their run from 1 through 3. Sam Anderson mentioned the best Chris Pine in Wonder Woman. So I thought that's fair. A couple people mentioned Pepper Potts, and I think it's weird that they would pick her since she is so obviously going to be the Skrull Queen. Count it right here. I'm making my prediction. And my pick personally would have been the Wasp. She is both a superhero in her own right and a significant other. So she hits all the points of being supportive and yet also like being an ally and stuff. So that would have been my pick. I think that's all I got right this second.
So what were the facts like? Anything crazy being said?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the facts seem pretty squared away as far as who's in what and whatnot. I think, when it comes down to like, if the question is strongest relationship, most supportive, I think Vanessa gets it. With Deadpool, I feel like that's the most fleshed out relationship. I feel like JT hit Hawkeye's wife, Laura, right? Was it pretty hard when he mentioned that it feels like a trick of the filmmaker to just like give them some emotion and add some like depth to that character, but she's not a fully fleshed out character in her own right. She's literally could be an internal monologue by Hawkeye and have the same effect. So that's kind of like, it's hard that was a pretty good slam. And I had to take Kimber's side when she said that it's really more of an infatuation between Peggy and Steve. There's no like they've got these like idealized versions of each other, and it never really plays out. And I agree that there's some potent moments built out of that, but like I said, when it comes down to who I think the best significant other and what that means, I'd throw my vote behind Vanessa.
All right, so then it's up to me to dig through all of this and choose a winner. Great points made by everyone, actually, and I think Hawkeye and Laura are taking some big hits, but I think that Joe and Ashley do well describe her contribution as the significant other. She is a mom. She raises kids. I get that too. You know what I mean? My wife was taking care of our family for a very long time, but I was the one taking care of the children. It's a very significant role. So Laura has a very important role in Hawkeye's life. I thought that they really got that across. Deadpool, the same thing. I think Vanessa's contribution to that relationship cannot be understated. You know, she is the thing that keeps him motivated and keeps him moving. And I thought she was a very appropriate. She's the perfect counterbalance to the Deadpool character. And I think with Peggy Carter, I like how you guys really pointed out that she is the hero of the three choices. You know, she's not playing the victim by any means, and she, in her own right, is very intelligent. She's devoted, but I had to pick, you know, I had to narrow it down. And if I narrowed it anywhere, I can't ignore the fact that Peggy Carter is the I would have liked to have had a relationship with you character, whereas the other characters we're in the relationship. Hawkeye has a wife. Vanessa is the significant other, Deadpool. And while Peggy Carter, I think, wins hands down as the most superhero version of any of these significant others, I think you can't really ignore that she did move on. I mean, she has her own kids. You know, she had a life. She did. You know, Steve wasn't enough to carry. She didn't die, you know, alone. Let's put it that way. So it did fall down between Deadpool and Hawkeye for me. As a father myself, it is hard to ignore Laura's contributions to her family. But I think in the end, if she had a more of a contribution to the films and we got to see more of her impact other than the few small scenes, I think it'd be easier to go with her. I think Vanessa, despite the fact that they kill her in the second movie, Vanessa is such a significant impact on the main character. In fact, she's better than he is really when it comes to the relationship, because he is constantly failing at relation. I mean, why can't you just tell her, dude, that you look like that now, and then you get your relationship back and you move on? You know, she's the one who holds up. She's the one who's there for him immediately when he comes back. I think the argument was made, and Team Odd Shape Panel, guess what? You won 2 couple fights. Good job.
Whoa.
Congratulations.
And Vanessa's safe and sound, guys. Spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
But Ashley was like, they fridged her. Like, yeah, they killed her, but she comes back. So it's like Channing Tatum in the second Kingsman.
Yeah, we had also thought about picking her. So, and then with the order that it was gone, we would have had to go with Hawkeye and them anyway. So I guess it was fate.
Guys, it was a great fight. Well done. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's go around the table real quick. I want to take a moment and so everyone at home can find out where to find you. Let's start with our special guest, JTE and April. Please tell everyone where to find you guys on the internet.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram at April13Dawn. I also host shows for AfterBuzz TV. You can find me on JTE's YouTube channel and all around the internet.
Yeah, same as usual. Screen Junkies, SJU every morning at 11 a.m. and Movie Fights every Thursday at 4. And of course, my YouTube channel, JTE Movie Thinks. I even have a podcast on iTunes. It also goes on my channel. Yeah, all things geeky. I'm talking it.
Guys, it's really great to have a special guest come on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. You guys were fantastic guests and put on a great show. So thank you for being here. Let's go to Geek to My Nerd. Tell us about where we can find you.
All right, well, you can find us at youtube.com/geektomynerd, where we are currently doing a lot of like a little book club every month. This month, we're going to review Black Klansman, the memoir by Ron Stallworth that Spike Lee turned into the movie Black Klansman. So we'll be talking about both of those things on the 30th, I believe.
The 30th, the evening of the 30th.
Yeah, so that'll be at 8 Central.
8 Central.
8 Central.
If you follow us on Twitter at Geek to My Nerd with _ between everything, we'll be posting updates about that as it gets closer. You can also follow us on Twitter individually.
Yeah, I'm at _Mrs. Davis.
And I am or at the Spice Must Joe. And
we have some special things coming up on our channel starting in October. If you want to tell everybody.
Yeah, we are weird because we are mid 30-year-old people that grew up in the 80s but have never seen a single Rocky movie between us. So we're gonna watch. I know it's
sorry,
fun.
JT. I never would have put you in this situation.
Actually,
had I known.
We're planning on rectifying that. So all of October, we're going to be doing Rocktober, where we watch all the Rocky movies, review them, leading up into Creed in November, where we basically do Rocktober in November, where we do the last of
so the anticipating Creed 2 because it looked really good. I want to see it, but you got to see everything that came before it.
Builds up
so much leading into it now. Yeah.
This is very similar to other series that we've done on our channel, like
Star Wars and Infinity War.
So just this a little series, and we have some other themed ones that we're kind of in the works of doing, just fun things before Infinity War stuff starts happening at the beginning and mid 2019. So.
And guys, they do some older shows for us here on our channel, so definitely check those out as well. BFF, Tom's wearing the shirt, so let's go over to Odd Shape Channel. You guys won today. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a really close fight. Yeah. All you guys were awesome. It could have been anybody. But you can catch us over on Odd Shaped Channel, where we do our show bi-weekly. We actually have one coming up tomorrow. It's an OSP and chill, which means we're basically going to be discussing pop culture news, recent movies, and and we are going to be starting we're going to do them bi-weekly, so every 2 episodes recap for American Horror Story Apocalypse on our channel, so look out for that coming soon.
Odd Apocalypse. And we have a new episode of Down Pilot Podcast coming this week. We're going to be discussing Lonely Island's Awesome Town pilot, both versions.
Finally, right?
Well, guys, congratulations! You had a great show today.
Me at Kimber OSP on Twitter.
Odd Shape Panel.
And that was Kimberbatch _ OSP. Sorry, I talked over.
Cumberbatch.
Yeah. And then Brian, thank you so much for helping us with the facts and the Twitter and the socials. Tell everybody about the new shows.
No, yeah, thanks as always for letting me sit in. If you follow me on Twitter, you've probably been annoyed over the last week or so. I was like churning out the end of my old content, getting all the old DVD bunkers out in their uncut podcast version. And on Wednesday, I dropped the first new episode in almost a year. Me and Matt talked about Men at Work. So if you're a fan of Emilio and Charlie Sheen, which you all should be, you should definitely check that out. New episodes will be dropping of DVD Bunker bi-weekly now, and on the opposite weeks, you can find me on my other podcast that I do with TJ Dex and Joe Shendango and Youssef, who came on here and got stomped by me last time. We do a little show called Flyover State of Film. So you can catch any Wednesday, there'll be new content, whether it's a flyover or a DVD bunker. And hopefully we'll be able to keep that up for a while and get back on track. So, on Twitter at Hercules.
Wonderful. And I'm Jack Shipley. This is Fan Friction. You can find me at JRS Pitboy 2008. You can follow us at the TUFF channel. Please subscribe, like, and do all the great things that help us have tens of thousands of views. So we're really glad to have you. Thank you again for all of our guests today. This was an awesome fight. We'll see you guys in a month where we begin the next road towards Kimber's belt being on the line. So we'll announce some of that. Keep an eye on my Twitter, and we'll talk about that soon. Thank you very much. Have a great Sunday.
I want to be part of that belt run.
Oh,
hey now.
A gauntlet has just been thrown down.
The arena.
Wow. Nice. We will talk about that again soon. So guys, stay tuned because we might be having some fun. So it was great to see everybody. Thank you again. Have a great Sunday. We'll talk to you on our next episode. Bye-bye.